Yeah. Okay. That's a lot. Pretty pleased with where we're at right now. We have. I mean, we still you're talking about the guys that still aren't here yet, and but we still have a lot of experience in the room. I mean, with Cam Irvin, Branson Hickman, Ben Sparks, you have the addition of hiring. Marcus Bryant's here. Phelan Robinson's just getting back, getting cleared. A guy like PJ who's new, who's not experienced, but you start adding it's like, oh wow, we're in a much better place this time this year than what we were this time last year. So pretty pleased with where we're at right now. Again, still have a lot of work to do and still got to figure out how the pieces fit and what we need to do with it. But all in all, the projection's up.
Phelan was pretty involved when he was out with his injury.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's pretty vocal out there. What's he like as a player, and what have you seen from him as he tries to battle back in?
We lost a coach, gained a player with Phelan. And really, last spring, Phelan was probably our time. I mean, he was playing better football than Marcus Bryant was this time last spring, and then had the freak accident with his back. And again, Phelan's a guy that it's almost like when you coach and leave the game, you get to watch it, and you kind of get to watch it from that 10,000-foot view. And you get back in it, it's like, oh wow, it slows down for me a little bit now. And I think that's kind of where Phelan's at. Again, today was his first day where it was like full go, you're in it. But at the same time, like he's a guy who he has okay ability, great size, and excellent smarts, excellent intelligence for the game, great anticipation, and I don't know whether it's going to be guard or tackle, and it's really wherever we need him because he is versatile like that. But he's going to be a guy that should help us this fall.
On signing day, Coach Lashley referred to Hiron White as a right tackle, and it's easy for us to look and see that you've got two gigantic tackles in him and Marcus. Are there characteristics that make one better suited for one side than the other, or is it just Marcus was already on the left side? So
yeah, that's probably it. I mean, Marcus had a pretty solid year last year at left tackle, and Hiron played right tackle his whole time in Missouri, so it seemed pretty natural to roll with that instead of trying to uproot it and change it around. But they do have very similar skill sets, and the fact that you look at them, if you change their jerseys, you probably would know who was who. But they're both extremely long guys who have a little bit better functional power than what you realize. Sometimes guys who are that tall, sometimes it's easy for those people to get under their pads and knock them back, but their functional strength's a lot better than what you think. And athletically, they're both adequate to above adequate as far as your foot speed. So they're doing a nice job. I mean, I think for what we're doing offensively, of course, Marcus is a little bit ahead because he's been around how I coach, what I'm coaching, what we're doing around our offense. He's a little bit ahead from that standpoint, but you're seeing Hiron from the fact he's coming off an Achilles injury, new offensive line coach. At first you saw those wheels turn, and now you're starting to see the progression. And he had the week last week that he was off for good reasons. And so all those things probably have hindered some of his development to keep him from getting where Marcus is at right now, but we're confident by the time August rolls around we'll get him there.
How do you go through the evaluation knowing that all the pieces aren't there? Is that in the back of your mind, or do you kind of have to throw that out and kind of work with what you've got right now?
Yeah, I mean, you're always thinking big picture, but at the same time, like all the guys I just mentioned, they're all part of that big picture, right? And some years you're very, very fortunate where you get very minimal injuries as far as what happens. And other injuries, it seems like a bomb goes off in your room and you have to be ready. And a guy I didn't even mention talking about a bomb going off is Justin Osborne, who arguably played better than any of the guys who are returning, who's out with surgery. So, yeah, I mean, like, my job is to coach and develop, right? Even the guys who may not figure into being starters next year. So even like the Rhett Larsons of the world, the younger guys who are just here, we got to develop those guys because hopefully you don't get to a world where you have to need them before they're ready. But we got to coach and develop everyone, and you saw like what we have to approach this thing with is, are guys good enough to help us win games? If they are, it's our job to try and find ways to get them in games. And I think you saw that last year. We played Ben Sparks, we rotated him in some. We rotated Bissinger in with Jalen Thomas early on last year. And really a lot of that stemmed from the fact of, one, we had more than 5 guys that we thought could help us win games. But we also had Jalen Thomas, who had a shoulder coming back from that. Between his conditioning and shoulder, we didn't want to just say, hey, go, right? And we knew Osborne had the back the whole year, so it was like, man, if we can keep the workload off of his back, maybe we can get him through the season. So that's going to come up, and it's our job it's my job as their coach to keep communicating to them. You play to a standard that is winning football. It's my job to make sure I try and get you in the game.
Rhett Larson and Jacob Waller came in last year. What have you seen from them this spring, and just kind of what is your plan for them as they continue to develop? Because once you get those guys in this summer, they're kind of spots are limited.
Well, and from a coach standpoint, we're in a good spot in the fact that we still are not necessarily pressed where we need those guys. They're kind of in the incubator in a lot of ways still. We've played them both at guard and tackle. We're trying to, we almost want to overload their mind a lot right now just to get them to just hopefully it'll slow down and catch up for them. And it is. But also I'm trying to evaluate and get a feel for what they did. When they came in last summer, my focus wasn't necessarily get those guys ready to play because they weren't going to be ready to play. Now the focus is, okay, let's see what they can and can't do, their strengths and weaknesses. Both those guys are smart kids who work hard, doing everything we're asking them to do. I think Rhett's more of a tackle than guard. Waller is probably a little more versatile from that standpoint. And they're guys that seem to be comfortable on both sides of the ball. Don't really know how they'll play out, but we're kind of just getting the big picture of how they could fall into a depth chart.
Marcus Bryant's had a lot of experience now in a blink of an eye, it feels like. I guess, what are your expectations and hopes for him? I mean, is there like, hey, can you take it to another level now that you've had this experience and are healthy probably going into this season?
Yeah, I mean, my expectations for Marcus to be one of, if not the best tackle in the league. And he was pretty close to that level last year. I mean, he's probably arguably at least top 3 in the league last year. So he needs to, at worst, be top 3 in the league, right? And get better. And everything he's shown. The thing that's been impressive about Marcus is from all the off-field stuff we're asking him to do, he's doing it. Like we came in, Marcus was his ankle stiff. You saw the stiffness, which is natural for a guy that's that tall. And Marcus with the guys in the weight room has just been attacking, and then he's kind of drug Hiron along with him as far as getting those correctives, getting his flexibility, doing all those things he needs to do to get his body in the position to be as good as he is. So he's been doing that, and his game's reflected that this spring.
You mentioned Justin Osborne and your desire last year to reduce the load on his back and get him through the season. Do you have an update on his status, and will that be the approach again this year, getting him through the season, or is he going to be all the way back to 100%?
Well, our anticipation, we'd love for him to be all the way back 100%, but at the same time, it's the approach we've had with Justin has kind of been the same with Thalen, from the standpoint of, like, if I said, hey, you have an ACL surgery and everyone knows it's 6 to 9 months and everyone expects by month 7 that you're cleared and good to go. Well, they're saying the same thing with his back. So, but in our mind, we're like, oh, that's a back, right? So we think we'll get him around August, but at the same time, like, that's a back, right? That's kind of unknown territory for me as a coach. I mean, first time I dealt with it with Thalen. So he's a guy that we will have to monitor his health, see how he comes along, see how his back reacts to it. But I feel confident between the guys we have now, Sparks, Cam, and then you're adding in, bringing in Logan Parr, bringing in Ja'Kai Clark, those guys, like, you're pretty deep at that guard position where you hopefully don't need him to have to go right away, and then slowly easing into it, getting when he's ready.
What have you seen from Branson Hickman? I know there's going to be more competition coming in this summer for him, but what have you seen from his response?
Yeah, Branson's a competitor. He's a guy that, like, he's probably had the best spring of anybody in the room right now. He's played really well. All those stereotypes you talk about, coach's kid, like that's what it is. He's got a great feel for the game, understands what we're trying to do from a coaching staff, is a natural leader for those guys. You can see the game is starting to really slow down and calm down for him right now, and that's encouraging. And, like, he's also aware. He knows that we're bringing in Ja'Kai Clark and Logan Parr, who've snapped the football in Power 5 games. So he's aware, but at the same time, he's not scared of competition. He's not backing down.
With Ja'Kai and Logan, how much interaction are you guys able to have with them so that they aren't starting from ground zero when they are here?
Yeah, just phone calls right now. I mean, Logan's probably a little more behind Ja'Kai, just for the fact that Ja'Kai has been coached by me for 2 years. He's been in our offense for 2 years, so Ja'Kai knows that from the mental standpoint of kind of what to expect. Logan's a little newer. There's phone conversations. Logan was here a week ago. Ja'Kai was here this past weekend, so they've been here. They've been around the guys. But I think the encouraging thing for us is we were able to get Owen Condon, Joe Bissinger in the same time frame ready to play last year. So, and I think, and it may look like that early on, right? It may, like, between Jalen Thomas not quite physically being where we wanted him and Joe Bissinger not quite mentally being where we want him, we kind of eased those guys both into the rotation last year. And it may be a similar deal with Logan. Depends on how well he catches. He may come here and be a natural and roll, and we have to play him. But we're in a situation where we've got a lot of guys that we feel like can win with, and it's my job to balance that and make sure we control the personalities and make everyone happy and understand that if you play well and you play at a winning standard, then we're going to play you.